if I'm not doing my best to look for ways to make Pauline's life easier, I'm going to miss areas that she's stressed. I'm not even going to realize she's stressed sometimes because I'm just looking for ways for her to serve me. What's up, fam? Welcome back to our channel. My name is Tim. This is my beautiful wife, Pauline. And you're tuning into another episode of the W Podcast where you get wisdom in the word with the
Wheelers.
Woo! If y'all knew sometimes what happens before the camera start, boy.
A lot of silliness happening over
How you doing? You good?
I'm thankful.
Thankful for what?
Thankful to be alive. Thankful to be a child of God.
You thankful to be married right now?
Oh, all the time. Life is hard. You might as well just not be alone in the hardness.
All right. So we have another question of the day.
How are you doing?
You didn't ask me, so
you didn't give me a chance. You do that every week, though. It's cool. How are you doing?
I'm good.
You grateful to be married?
Always.
Tell us more about that.
Happy wife, happy life, they say.
Oh, so what would you rate your happy life on a scale of 1 to 10?
11.
Wow. So does that mean your wife is at 11?
Absolutely. She should be. She should.
No. We're not talking about what should. We're talking about what is.
Woo! Anyway. Let's get focused because we actually do have an interesting topic that relates to marriage.
Always. Relationships, marriage.
And the person asked it in the context of marriage, but it honestly applies to the dating relationship as well. And even if it doesn't come up in your dating relationship, it's something that it's a muscle you want to start practicing because you are going to need it at some point. Mm-hmm. In marriage or any relationship, and that's just having a hard conversation in general. You got to be able to have those.
It doesn't have to be hard, but yeah.
It doesn't have to be. For some people, it is. Or for some people, it could be a scary question.
You go without making your needs being known. But anyway.
All right. Well, let's say what the question is.
Question is, how do you communicate to your partner and or spouse, but yeah, that you need some time alone?
How do you communicate to your spouse that you need some time alone?
Or your partner if you're dating.
You want to get that in there?
Yeah, because it's a dating podcast.
Okay, but you are dating to get married, so you need to know the information as well. Yeah, y'all could see where the conversation was before the mic came on. But we're going to answer the questions y'all give us. So, I have a question for you.
Oh.
Do you think it's wrong to want time to yourself in marriage? Like, because I can see somebody, obviously the person asked this question, they feel like it's not the easiest thing because they're asking for a suggestion. So for some people, I could see this being kind of a touchy subject because they don't want their spouse to feel some type of way. Like, oh, why don't you want to spend time with me?
Right.
Aren't I great to be around?
Right.
So for you, like, do you think have you ever had this feeling where you want to get away from me?
Oh, all the time.
All the time.
I mean, it's just in short spurts, though.
All the time. That's.
Everybody needs like a time. Like, I'm talking about a moment to like take a breath, and like it's hard because selfishly, if I'm reading this question, thinking about this question, I think about how it applies to myself. And if you have a family, not just a marriage, but a whole family, if you have children and a spouse, that makes it even more overwhelming. And, you know, depending on who you are, if you're introverted, if you're kind of less social, and having a lot of people around you is just overwhelming and kind of overbearing, those things play a factor as well. And I'm extroverted, even though I am a homebody, but I think that, you know, I guess I just imagine for somebody else who's not extroverted, and if they're in their marriage and they're feeling like, oh, I'm constantly around my spouse, especially because nowadays, you know, we had a time in our marriage where we both were working from home together, and there are obviously other couples out there like that where both...
That can make it more challenging.
Yeah, like, because in some... I know I used to work with a woman, and her husband both worked from home, and they shared an office, so it wasn't just
that's
like
too much, bro.
Yeah, it wasn't even just like working from home. It's like they
You think we could have did that when we worked?
Shared an office? I mean, we tried it for a couple weeks. Yeah, when we both worked in the. Yeah, we did. It wasn't.
We were never really in there at the same time.
You're right. Fair.
So we didn't share.
Okay, fair. Because this woman that I'm thinking about, they didn't have any kids, so they were like, they didn't have anything pulling them away. I think they had a dog that they had to walk every so often. But anyway,
sharing the office.
But yeah, it just depends. It just all depends. But anyway, all that to say, some couples spend a lot of time, and we spend a lot of time together now. But I think that it just depends. Everyone's needs and like kind of social barometers and like peopling tolerances are different, whether like spouse or not. Sometimes your spouse, even more so because they do annoying things like, their habits in the bathroom or around the house, things like that.
Is this hypothetical? Or?
Yeah, not you. Of course,
okay.
not you.
Okay.
You're very clean, actually. But, but yeah, so I think that it's not wrong to want time by yourself, but I think just how you communicate that is very, very important, especially if you are like a newlywed, because sometimes like there's just so much excitement about we're together, especially if you dated in a way that honors God and you probably didn't get to spend that much time together as much as you wanted to anyway, and now you're excited that you're living together and you get to be together all the time and like can do everything together. It's like kind of like all this freedom.
Do you think this question in a way could be like, how they say every relationship has a spender and a saver? Do you think every relationship has somebody who wants to hang out or be around the person more than the other?
Yeah, and then luckily, you always told me that you loved being around me. And I think that, that is what has helped us is learning how to spend time together. So, because some people...
Explain that.
I think that, so this question, you need some time alone. If you were to come to me and say, hey, babe, I love you, I, love being married to you, I don't want to be married to anybody else, but I need some time alone by myself every day, my question would be, why? Because it kind of is telling me that, am I draining you? Am I a burden? Am I making your life hard or stressful? Because if, that's not what I want to be, to you and in our marriage. So if that's the case, then, we need to talk more about that. Now, I'm not saying that, that's the situation for whoever asked this question or anybody who's in that situation where you're I need, because I got to think about it, people talk about their parents, who I love, I'm a son and their mom, I love my mom, but she's just so much, she talks so much, she always wants to know everything, she's asking me all these questions that I really don't want to ask, I love my mom, I know that she loves me, but it's just too much.
Yeah.
Versus, a best friend where you're oh, that's my guy, he always makes me laugh, he always encourages me, we always have fun. That's what you want your marriage to feel like. You don't want your marriage to feel like your mom or your parent. And even that goes vice versa for a female could feel oh, I love my dad, I know that he loves me, but he's just always so serious, or he's always asking me 1,000,005 questions about my 5-year plan, and it's Dad, can we just chill? Can we just have a good time? Why is everything so serious?
Yeah. Well, I think you brought something up that's interesting when you were giving that example of me just saying I need time and that's it. And I think that's one of the things I wanted to highlight, because I really do think for this type of conversation there's 3 things that could help somebody: over communication, creating systems, and love. And I'll break those down later. But your point of just coming and saying, hey, I need time away from you, I think that automatically sets the conversation up for a fail. Because I think in this situation, you need to over-communicate from the jump. Yeah. And when I say over-communicate, in this instance, I mean you're sharing your heart. Whenever you have a hard conversation, it is better to share your heart with the person of why you need something instead of just saying that you need something. So kind of explaining the why up front. Hey, there's a lot going on at work right now. I'm drained at the end of the day. I want to be able to show up and give you my best the rest of the day. Right. So I need 30 minutes after work to myself where I can just focus on you. Something like that is better, because then if I came and said that to you, you wouldn't take it personally, because you would realize.
Well, yeah, but that's the thing. It's making sure kind of before you start this conversation, it doesn't need to be this big, like, oh, I need time away from my spouse or my part. Like, you know, I'm gonna, how do I bring it up to them? I think it's just kind of leading with the challenges, like you said, of like, hey, work's really stressful right now. I think what would help me feel less stressed is taking a 30-minute walk by myself, you know, after work. Like, just so you know, that's where I'm going to be. Are you okay with that? Can you support me in that? Oh, yeah, of course. I will do anything to help you not feel as stressed. I think any partner or spouse would be extremely supportive of that. Or I just need, you know, 30 minutes to play video games or to watch my favorite show and have a couple laughs or whatever it is you do to kind of break up your day, or like have some alone time, like, you know, asking for that instead of saying I need time away from you, like you are the problem.
But I think why are you always here?
Right, but I think that's what really is but that's what I'm saying, is you have to ask yourself why this is, because if your spouse is the problem, then that's another conversation, which I don't know if you plan on going into that, but
I wasn't, so please just go.
I think because marriage can be very overwhelming and overbearing, and it's always changing. We're always changing. Life is always changing. So what may have worked in one season or one stage of marriage, of you guys like working from home together and going out to eat together and cooking together, cleaning together, doing everything together, like going to the gym, that may not work, you know, forever, where it's like, okay, you're a great gym partner, but you're not a great cleaning partner. I'd rather clean by myself. I'd rather us divide and conquer the house. I do upstairs, you do downstairs. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay to switch things up and not do everything together. I think that's one of the things that I realized when we became parents, because we used to do everything together. And then when we became parents, it was like, oh, we can't. Like, we only have 24 hours in a day.
Okay, so I hear you, but I feel like it's starting to... Because I like where you were going, but I feel like it's veering away from if the person is the problem.
Okay, so if the person is the problem, I think it's more about like, because no one's perfect, right? Like, and I think when you get married, the longer you're married, the more you realize how much, like, the annoying things are about your partner.
So you're saying, when you say, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. When you say the person is the problem, you're saying the person's annoying. You.
Yeah, but I think your spouse is annoying. Like, you annoy me, I annoy you. Like, that's a part.
You know how to easily push their buttons, for sure.
Right. So it's a matter of managing that and having boundaries with your partner. And I don't even mean like boundaries in the sense of dating, like how we typically talk about, but I mean the sense of like, okay, I am not at a good space to respond well to you when I'm fresh off of work and I'm stressed, when the kids are yelling and screaming, when dinner has to be made, you know, when all these things are happening, I am not my best for you. And I've noticed that I kind of kirk and I treat you badly in these situations. This is now addressing yourself as a problem instead of your partner. And like, because your partner can be very, like, sometimes spouses are like nagging, or they're constantly like bothering you about things, and it's like, okay, I can't, this isn't working for me right now. So if they are the problem, and you have to be able to be self-aware and ask yourself, when is it that my spouse is most bothersome to me? If it is right after work, when you're like kind of most stressed and you're kind of trying to process the day and transition into your nighttime, you know, life and routine, then that's the point where you say, all right, I noticed that I'm most irritated by my spouse during this time period. This would be most beneficial for me to have time away from them at that point. So it's more saying like, okay, it doesn't mean that they're always annoying, they're always irritating, because that's not true. You know, it's just not true. But it's whenever they are the most that way to you, it's not probably them. They're part of the problem, but also so are you, because you are high stress, high touch, high irritated, all those things. So I think it's more about like protecting yourself and protecting them in those instances. But again, having the awareness of like, it can't be all the time. Like, I need space away from you every night you're gone.
Because why did you marry him?
Yeah, like every night you're gone for hours and hours. Like, no, this is a bigger issue now than just, I need, 30 minutes to recoup.
What you doing up there?
That's what I think too needs to be communicated with this. Is, giving a time limit. It can't just be like, I need space away from you after work. Like, well, how long? And like, where are you going? What are you doing? It's not like, are you going to go talk to somebody else? Like, that's not good.
Right. So if you're single or you're dating, listening to this, obviously when you get married one day, you're not going to know right away what pushes your buttons or what space you may need. But what you can do now is to start identifying in yourself what makes me frustrated. Or after I finish a long day of work, like, how do I feel? Do I feel like I could go and talk to somebody? Do I not? And the reason I say to start doing these self-evaluations is so that when you do get married, you're quicker to be able to realize your buttons, quicker to realize what frustrates you, what doesn't. So then you can that's not even a word. I know, goodness gracious. You can more quickly assess and have a conversation with your partner. Because nothing's worse in a marriage is being frustrated and not knowing why you're frustrated, because then you can't communicate it with your partner, and then it's just causing a bunch of issues, and you're not even able to resolve the issue because you don't know why you even have the issue in the first place.
Yeah, and on the flip side too, like, if your partner is self-aware, they can do that for you. Like, they may say, like, hey, I noticed after work, like, that's when you seem to be the most irritated, or is it me? Is it, you can always ask, like, is it something that I'm saying or doing? And they may say, like, yeah, I really don't like when you do X, Y, and Z. And say, oh, okay, do you think that it's the fact that work is really stressful right now? And, I'm kind of, maybe I should ask you the honey-do list, on Saturday mornings instead of, Mondays during dinner or something like that.
Yeah, and that goes into the over communication piece that I was talking about. Like, don't be afraid to ask questions in marriage and in a relationship, period. Like, even if it sounds simple, like me and Pauline all the time will be like, yo, are we good? Like, because a lot of
system.
No, that's over communication. Because sometimes Pauline can be upset or I can be upset, and it has nothing to do with the other person. Like, I'm not mad at her, I'm not upset at her, but my mood around her is not great. Oh, it's you too. It's definitely you too.
You just had to.
Yeah, I just had to make sure people know the truth. But it's important, instead of me seeing her attitude or seeing her mood and becoming self-conscious and I'm starting to act weird around her, it's better for me to just come to her and say, hey, are we good? If that's something I need. Some of you may not care how somebody else is feeling or acting around you. It's not going to affect your mood. But if you're the type of person where that may affect you, it's better to just ask right away, hey, are we good? Let them say.
Yeah, but if our goal is to be a godly spouse, like, you need to care. Like, if your spouse is
that wasn't the main point.
You need, even if you're, especially if you're not the problem. Well, even if you are, but either way, it's your job to take care of them, to care for them. Okay, something's going on. Somebody pissed you off. Somebody made you angry. You're stressed. What can I do to make your life easier? Like, that needs to constantly be our hearts. And, like, obviously I fail at that, we all fail at that, and that's fine, but it doesn't need to be like, oh, I didn't do anything wrong to piss her off or piss him off. They'll figure it out on their own. Let me just go about my business.
And I've been hinting at it all night, so I might as well just start getting into it. I do think there's 3 things that can help you with these conversations: over communication, systems that you set up, and love. And I feel like what you're talking about right now is love. Caring for your partner, caring that they're upset, caring that they are struggling with something. Because if you don't have love for the person you're married, first of all, that's a scary place to be. And second of all, you're not going to be able to fully maximize that relationship because you're going to have gaps. Like, if I'm not doing my best to look for ways to make Pauline's life easier, I'm going to miss areas that I'm not even going to realize she's stressed sometimes because I'm just looking for ways for her to serve me.
Right.
I need to be looking, what is she doing today? How can I help her? Like, that's the highest functioning marriage you can have, is when you're constantly looking for how you can serve your partner.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
I also wanted to add and kind of talk about, or maybe I'll ask you a question. Ask me a question.
Well, let's do this. Let's write it down and save it, because I'd rather just go to this first. So, because we're talking about love, I want to make sure we're all on the same page of what is love. Because that's a word that is said a lot, obviously, but I don't know if we always look at it biblically. Like, I don't know how many people know that the Bible actually describes what love is.
I sure hope so. They read a verse almost at every wedding.
That doesn't mean people are listening. Weddings be long, bro.
They're not always, but the ceremonies.
Anyway, so the Bible says in 1 Corinthians 13, 4-7, like Pauline said, a lot of you may have realized it or heard it, but it says, love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous or boastful or rude. It does not demand its own way. It's not irritable. It keeps no record of being wronged. It does not rejoice about injustice, but rejoices whenever the truth wins out. Love never gives up, never loses faith, is always hopeful, and endures through every circumstance. And I think sometimes we don't look at that for ourselves. Like, Tim is kind. Tim is patient. Tim is not jealous or boastful of Pauline. Because that's something that people deal with in marriage, just being jealous of their spouse because of the talents or gifts or maybe doors that are opening for them. And sometimes we got to go back to the word and remind ourselves, this is what I'm supposed to be like if I'm saying I'm loving my spouse well. And this is not to say that you're always going to get it right, because I for sure am not always patient with Pauline. But the good thing about hiding the word in your heart is whenever I am impatient with Pauline, usually I can be pretty quick to know that was wrong. I need to go apologize. Now, whether I go apologize or not is a different situation, but the more you have God's word in your heart, the quicker you can resolve issues or love your partner well. And I think that that's important. So what's the question that you had?
Thanks for sharing that. So you asked me in the beginning of the podcast, is it good or, bad to want alone time in marriage? And essentially I said, no, it's not bad to want your alone time. It's just more about how you go about it. So my question is, when is it bad, or how can it be bad to have alone time in marriage?
How can it be bad?
Yeah, when is it bad? In what situations is it bad? Is it always good to want alone time?
No, I think it can be bad over a period of time if instead of talking to your spouse about issues that you're having, you're constantly just trying to run to be alone to yourself, because that's going to drive distance in your relationship. Because you should want your spouse to know what's going on in your head, to know what's going on in your heart, because the Bible says you're one. So when you're withholding things from them, you're hurting your spouse, essentially. Mm-hmm. What about you? I see you typing.
You can just let me not forget. I was writing it down so I wouldn't forget, so I wouldn't be tempted to interrupt you.
Nah, praise God. Let's keep that up.
Right, so keep going.
I'm done.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's because the reason why I asked that question is because I could see it kind of coming off as like, oh yeah, like it's good to want alone time, and I want my alone time, and this is what my alone time looks like for me. And I think, it can get kind of extreme. And I guess it kind of all goes back to like the love point that you brought up, that it's important to have, because yes, you do need to take care of yourself, and like it is okay to step away. And we kept giving these like 30-minute examples, like, kind of short spurts of time, like not longer than a show, than like a regular sitcom, not one of those long docu-series. But
I don't even necessarily. I agree that it doesn't need to be long all the time, but I don't think it's wrong to have long periods. And my main thing is, I'm diverting you for a little bit, but one of the things I was going to say, and it goes to the systems piece that I wanted to touch on, is when you need to have a conversation with your spouse if you want to have a long time. Explain your heart, over communicate. Hey, this is what's going on. This is why I need this. It has nothing to do with you, unless it does. Then you need to have that conversation. And whatever you say, you and your spouse need to agree on the direction that you have. So if you are going to do that 30 minutes, then it needs to be agreed upon with your spouse.
Like submit it to them.
That 30 minutes is the time limit everybody's comfortable with being apart. Mm-hmm. And that can save you from having issues, because systems can help you maintain healthy expectations. Mm-hmm. So if you know that every day after work I need an hour to myself, that's just an example, you're not going to be mad when 45 minutes in, I'm still away from you. Or you shouldn't be mad because you agreed
right.
that you were okay with me having that hour to myself.
Right. I think what's
Excuse me.
huge about that is like whatever time. I love the idea of submitting it, and it's something that you guys agreed upon. Like, hey, this is what I need. It can't just be like, I'm doing this, and I communicated it with you. Like, deal with it.
Submit to one another.
Yeah, it needs to be like, hey, I would really appreciate this. Are you okay with it? And you know, your spouse might say like, hey, I hear your heart, and I want you to have your time, but you know, 30 minutes works on this day for me. An hour works. You know, I can kind of give you more time or less time depending on schedules. But I also think that it needs to be reciprocal, you know. Offer it to your spouse as well. Like, hey, I don't know when the best time what would be the best time, you know, each day for you to have time alone. I know that you're stressed as well. And obviously if you don't have kids, you guys can take that time at the same time and be away from each other. Or take time apart to do whatever it is you want to do. And honestly, if you don't have kids, you probably have a good amount of time apart, because like if you're going to the gym, you're going to the grocery store, like it just depends on what people's lifestyles are and like what your opportunities are to be away, especially if you know you both work apart from each other. You're already away from from each other. But I think, and also on the other hand, you need to the same way you're planning to have time alone, you do need to have time for connection. So it needs to be like, okay.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. You can't intentionally have time alone and not intentionally have time where you're together. And I don't know what you're saying, but I'm assuming you don't just mean time on the couch watching TV as you're scrolling through both of your phones.
That's why I said time of connection, not just time together or in the same room or like being apart, because some people that may be their time apart, and it doesn't necessarily mean like I can't be in the room with you. It just mostly means like we're not connecting, like my attention is not on you. It means like, hey, I'm gonna be on the couch, you can be on the couch too, but just don't expect me to talk to you or don't expect me to like, you know, ask you how your day was or for me to share with you,
because we for sure have moments like that.
Yeah, I mean, everybody does. And I think that's what's hardest when you just don't have an understanding of, you know, you're not on the same page of expectations. Because if you come home, you know, I could come downstairs and you're, you know, watching TV and catching up on your shows. And if I'm like sitting there next to you, like, hello, like, look at me, talk to me. And you're like, this is my time, you know, to be kind of by myself and like relax. Because I think a lot of spouses, they don't actually need to be away from each other to have their alone time. It's just a matter of like, your expectations of me are too high right now. Like, I'm not going to clean the kitchen. I'm not going to, you know, ask you how emotionally and physically I am to myself right now. And if you're okay with that, then that's fine. But if I need to go somewhere else, like if you cannot see me and not expect something of me, then I will have to step out of the house or, you know, go in a separate room. But yeah, back to the points of the connection. Definitely having some conversations about that. Maybe hopefully you already have those things in place, but just protecting those. So even if you're like, hey, we're going to have dinner together every night for 20 minutes, or we are going to watch a show together, you know, before we go to sleep, or we're going to, of course, you should always be praying together every night, as much as you possibly can, even if that's just on the phone, if one of you is traveling or works nights or something like that. Even like showering together, like making sure we shower together every night. Like that's a great connection point. And yeah, just whatever it is, or like having coffee together in the morning. Everybody has their things. You drive to work together, but just make sure you have like protected time where you are gonna talk. You are gonna ask, "Hey, how are you? How is this project at work? How is this? You know, what are you feeling about this with your family? Whatever's going on in your partner, your spouse's mind for that day. You need to have daily connection points as well, intentional ones.
Yeah. So I just want to circle back. And then I'm good. I'm done. But the systems piece, because I don't want somebody. Don't let that word system scare you, because that can sound very corporate, very businessy, and I know that so many people want their relationships, especially their marriages and dating life, to be spontaneous and romantic. But if that's all you want, it's a little immature. Like we gotta grow up a little bit and.
I don't think spontaneity equals romantic though, because to be romantic, you have to be very intentional. Like, think about bringing me flowers.
Right,
like,
we're on the same page about that.
Okay,
we are on the same page. I'm talking to somebody who doesn't understand that, or who just thinks that our relationship is it's only good if it's spontaneous and on a whim. And I just want to let you know, like, God created systems. Like, He believes in systems. You know how it rains? Like, how it rains is a system. And not to take you back to elementary school, if that's where you learned that. I don't know. But
is that where you learned about rain?
I just learned just now on Google.
Oh, so it's not elementary thing.
I did know. But, you know, I'm not going to go all the way into it because it's way too much. But there's 4 keys to helping it rain. Evaporation, when the water or the liquid is going up into the air. Condensation, when it's starting to go into the clouds. Cloud formation, when the water droplets are now in the clouds and they're starting to connect.
Are you guys buying this?
And then when the cloud starts to rain, that's rain. Anyway, it's a system. You Google it for yourself.
Bicentennial. When the cloud starts to rain,
when
it
the cloud
rains.
starts to rain, it rains.
There is a cloud.
Listen,
beginning.
I'm not Bill Nye, but
Bill Nye is not Bill Nye.
What do you mean? You trying to say he's not a real doctor?
Anyway, doctor.
Whatever he is, scientist. We're going off the rails here. We're going to end this. But all I can say, please don't be scared of systems, because systems can help you maintain healthy expectations in a relationship. And they can help you keep things spontaneous, because life is going to get crazy. And systems can help when life gets crazy that your relationship doesn't. Because you can have a set of things that you always know you're going to go to. So for the most part, every week, me and Pauline are going to try to go on a date night at least once. Now, some weeks that doesn't happen because maybe life happened and something came up. But we're not going to go 4 weeks.
Right. You get back. It's kind of the same thing as many of you guys have either practiced or have heard like how to lose weight. And it's the same way of like going to the gym. So you cannot, lose weight or, build muscle and work your body, build your muscle without going to the gym consistently. Now, obviously, you're going to have some days where you're not able to go. Things come up, you go on vacation, emergencies, whatever, you get sick. But after those periods are over, you get back on the wagon. Like, you're not just like, oh, well, whatever, just forget about that. I'm never going to do it again. Or the same thing with hopefully with reading your Bible or things like that. You have systems in your life to, that build these habits that transform who you are with body, mind, and soul. And same thing goes for your relationships. You don't just, because I think what's so key about this entire question and why this question is important about having alone time, and now we've turned it into having points of connection, is, you do not build a great relationship by like happenstance or spontaneity, like you said. In dating, it does happen because you're so excited, but a lot of times people drop off and they do not carry that same spontaneity and that romanticism into marriage, because all of those things are based on emotion. And when your emotion falls off, the same thing people talk about, the honeymoon stage is over. And
it's hard to be spontaneous when you got a 3-year-old grabbing at you all day. You're tired. Sorry.
Yes, man. Trying to expose me. But yeah, it's very, it's very easy to find somebody, and some of you are looking at me like, no, it's not so hard, but it's much easier to find someone to build a relationship with than it is to build and then maintain and continue to build that relationship. It doesn't happen by accident. Like, even people talk about sports and great dynasties, like those things do not happen by accident. You have to be extremely intentional and extremely faithful, like doing things over and over and over and over and over again, even when you don't see the fruit of it, because the Bible tells us not to grow weary in well doing. So even if you're in this situation and you're like, hey, I'm stressed, I don't really feel like, maybe my partner is adding to that stress because we're up each other's butts all the time now that we're like newly married or something like that, that's okay. There are ways to, of course, kind of incorporate this and talk with them where it's a blessing to you and a blessing to your marriage, and hopefully your spouse will learn something about you through that conversation. But you definitely don't want to, because if you don't address these things and you don't have these conversations, that's when the enemy starts to come in and say, oh, you married the wrong person, like she doesn't understand you, he doesn't understand you, look the way that you guys are so different, you want to have alone time and he wants to talk all the time, and that's not you, and it's just simply not true, because everybody's different. Whether you married Tom, whether you married Sally, it doesn't really matter. Like, marriage is going to be hard, and it's honestly an opportunity for conflict every single day, and it doesn't have to be something that's negative or abrasive or harmful. It can be an opportunity to, number one, for you to learn yourself and grow in awareness and grow in your communication, because a lot of us don't know how to have these conversations, and then a chance for your partner to get to know you and hopefully love you better as well.
Well said. I don't need to add nothing else to that. This has been another episode of the W Podcast. We'll see y'all next week.
Bye.
Thanks for watching this video.
To get more Christian relationship advice, subscribe to our channel.
And make sure you check out our other videos as well.